Hey horror fans, thanks for joining me for this review of The Silence. Cast and crew information down below, and I will jump right into the IMDb plot. When the world is under attack from terrifying creatures who hunt their prey by sound, 16-year-old Allie Andrews, who lost her hearing at 13, and her family seek refuge in a remote haven. So yeah, the whole point of this movie is to be silent, or creatures like that thing will come and get you. So this one is a Netflix movie. Saw this one on Netflix, and it stars Stanley Tucci, and he's the big name in this movie. He's the father of Allie in this movie, and basically the movie opens showing some people in a cave, and apparently they've unleashed these crazy creatures like the one behind me, and unfortunate for the world because what seemed like maybe just a bunch of them quickly multiplies, and apparently nothing can be done to stop them as they basically start overtaking cities. So basically the story then kind of homes in on Allie, and she kind of starts telling her story a little bit. You see her at school, and see people who obviously make fun of her because she can't hear, and she then kind of mentions this is her story, or everybody has a story of where they were, what happened to them when these creatures took over. So then we basically follow her story, and her story is obviously an interesting one because she's lost her hearing. They kind of touch on that later in the movie, about how she did that, because she wasn't. This is not a case where she was born that way. A certain event happened when she was 13, and that caused her to lose her hearing. So a little bit of an advantage to her in this circumstance, and you'll see that in this film. When I read it, the plot before I put this on, I really didn't know about too much about this movie. Just kind of looking for. This is another one of those movies where I was just kind of scrolling through Netflix looking for something to watch, and I just landed here. And I kind of read it, and I almost didn't watch it because I said that sounds a whole lot of like the Quiet Place, and was like, why do I need to watch this? Is this going to be a ripoff of A Quiet Place? I really, if maybe, I don't know if you caught my review of that, I really enjoyed that movie, a huge fan of that one, and so I was kind of like, do I want to venture into this? Am I just going to watch this and this is just going to be a big ripoff? This is, a little bit different. It has its similarities and different, obviously. You have to be quiet in this one. You had to be quiet in A Quiet Place. A Quiet Place, I think, went out of their way to hide the creatures, or hide whatever it is that is out there in the woods. They give an explanation to it, and they don't reveal what it is till much later, or you don't really get a good look till later. This film, you get a better vantage point than probably earlier in the movie. Maybe similar kind of creatures. Obviously, these ones, as you can see behind me, kind of look like some mutant bats. Maybe larger than the typical bat, and they're blind. If you get a close up, it doesn't look like they have eyes, and obviously they rely heavily on sound, and and there's just huge swarms of them flying all around. So, there are some similarities and some differences here where, in A Quiet Place it seemed like they're bigger creatures. But obviously, they're all about sound as well. So is it a complete ripoff? Not really. But yeah, there are some similar things. At the end of the day, I still like Quiet Place a lot more than this one. So again, here you have a family who is slowly discovering what's happening. They're basically watching the news, and the news is basically says everybody should stay put, stay where you are, and hunker down, don't and so forth. As they're discovering what the hell is going on here. But this family, along with their uncle, who is a little more trained and so forth, John. He was played by John Colbert. You might recognize him from some other things. He's a little more gung ho, a little more of the survivalist, a little more of the person who would carry guns and so forth. They kind of rely on him, and they're like, well, maybe we'd have a better chance if we went out in the country. So they do the exact opposite of what everybody is being told to do, and they hit the road in two different cars, and run into a little bit of trouble, kind of escape that real quickly. I almost felt like a throw-in scene to me, a scene where they just felt they needed to do because of the setting or what was about to happen, and maybe for added dramatics. Really didn't feel needed. Hit the highway again, and we hit what you would expect, a traffic jam. There's a lot of other people who decide, I'm not going to stay at home. I am also going to drive to God knows where, and they then veer off a path and go down some roads through some woods and so forth. And I'm going to, kind of leave it almost around there because I don't want to spoil everything that happens afterwards. Let's say more trouble hits. Let's say they don't get to their destination. No, I don't think that's a shocker. I'm not even sure they knew where they were going. I think they were just looking for some place that they could shelter in. That's a little more away from things, and but yeah, let's say they run into trouble there on the road, and they end up having to survive for themselves almost out in the middle of nowhere. And then with the typical kind of ways that go with this kind of story, they do run into some people who are not friendly, and obviously they have several encounters with these creatures. I know they're kind of piecing together a lot here in a short time span here of the movie, but things like the people they run into are almost seem like they're a faction, and almost a faction that's already been well versed in these creatures and what's going on, almost like somebody they would have run into maybe if this was further down the line, where they're portraying this as the events of now, or like this just happened. So I thought that was a little weird. Maybe they're imagining that you're thinking their time is going by a lot faster than the movie really is, but I don't think so. So I those are weird people, and I think that they were interesting, and they're it wasn't a bad idea to have them. I just think that maybe the way those people were set, that they would have been better off if this was a longer story, or maybe if they had skipped maybe a month or two down the line. They just seemed too in tune with what was going on too early, and the interactions with the creatures. I mean, that's a lot about what this film's about. You want to see the creatures. It was okay. there's a couple of scenes where they kill a couple of people, and they're swarming and they're attacking. There's a good scene where you really get to see at least one really up close, like the one behind me, and see it jump around, and a little bit of tension is drawn. Obviously they try to drop the tension anytime they're trying to do anything, and trying to be very quiet in doing so. And then noise happens, and panic sets in, and stuff happens. So a lot of stuff that you would expect to. I think overall, it wasn't a bad setup and so forth. Again, I think maybe they tried to cover too much in a short time period. They do a decent job of setting certain things up, and with the suspense and so forth. But at the end of the day, it's definitely short of a Quiet Place. Definitely thought that was a whole lot better. And speaking of it kind of being short, I didn't really like the ending. I think, again, I'm trying not to spoil things for you. Certain events happen, and then it just seemed like the movie stopped, and then it wanted to then move forward and show what was happening more in the later, because you obviously get the feeling from the beginning that Allie's telling this story. So I guess that's a little bit of a spoiler. You see where she is now at the end, and no surprise. I don't think there's a huge spoiler there if the story's being told from her standpoint, that she's alive. But I didn't like that it just where it kind of dropped off. I guess they only have so much time in the movie and so much time to go by, but it just seemed like an abrupt stop. Maybe you wanted to see a little bit more of what happened after that moment, and kind of see what happens then before they jump forward. So I really didn't care for that. Obviously, what they present at the end was kind of interesting. If this was successful, I don't know how successful this was. It definitely leaves the door open for another one if they wanted to do more with the story. Obviously, they've created a little world for them there. So you never know. But yeah, to me, it just ends up being another movie. So with that, I'm going to give it 2 pools of blood. The creatures were good. But again, when they're swarming around and killing people, you don't get a lot of blood and guts and so forth. They are ugly looking, to their credit. But that's about it. And the story is okay. Like I said, it's a lot of the typical and what you'd expect from this kind of setting and so forth. And I don't know. I didn't dive into this family the same way I did for A Quiet Place. Maybe that's because they had younger children. I don't know. But yeah, 2 pools of blood for The Silence. And that's it for this one. Catch more video reviews on this channel, so subscribe if you want. horrorsquarereviews.blogspot.com for more reviews, including written ones. I do write as well. That link is down below, along with the Facebook and Twitter link to where to find me. Feel free to hit me up there. Talk about this movie, other movies, something you want me to watch. The comment section is there. Comment on this movie, whether you liked it, didn't like it. Whichever direction you go, that's fine. Let me know. And I guess that'll be it. I guess I will now go silent on this one before this creature decides to bite off my head. And I will jump on to the next review. So I will catch you later, horror fans.